Morant with a running start. Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! Oh, he hit it! Ja Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies lost to the Warriors in a thrilling play-in game. They rallied from a 20-point first-half deficit to take the lead in the fourth quarter, and then down the stretch, they were out-dueled by Steph Curry, and now they head to the Friday play-in game where they will play the winner of tonight's Kings-Mavericks game to determine if they go to the playoffs this season. So in today's episode, I will wrap up this loss to the Warriors, give my thoughts on everything that occurred. Before I do, just a reminder, if you want to support the creation of this program, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. We've been having a lot of discussions over in the Grizzlies Slack channel this morning over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you want to join a community of like-minded basketball fans and get a little bit more from me, and also join in on my playoff game that I offer to my patrons, the Stone Cold Locks Playoff Challenge. Also, if you join Patreon, you get an extra bonus episode every month. So consider helping out and joining over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. It was a thrilling game, and of course we are disappointed with the results, and it has continued this streak of losing to good teams, of remaining winless in California. Unfortunately, the paths before the Grizzlies going into this game, it was win and you play the Rockets, who maybe you can have a really good series against. Maybe you can beat the Rockets, or lose and then play for your lives on Friday. And if you win that game, then you have to face the Thunder, which is probably certain elimination. So in one sense, this game was for your season. That is how I felt about it. And after having numerous games at the end of the regular season I described as do or die, once again, the Grizzlies came up just short. But it wasn't without a lot of drama and without some very good play. You got a huge game from Desmond Bane with 30 points. Ja Morant, the big story from this game is he injured his ankle. He hurt his ankle on a play in the third quarter where he made a shot on the baseline, landed on Buddy Hield's foot, twisted his ankle. He returned to the game in the fourth quarter. I don't know how much the injury bothered him. He looked basically like his normal self, but they did not do the normal call 12. He wasn't as heavily involved as you might think. He only scored 6 points in the second half, 2 points on that play where he made the shot and got fouled and got injured. And then he scored 4 points in the fourth quarter, meaning he only scored 22 points for the game, which is way under what we expect from Ja Morant in these must-win situations. And you look at his previous performances in the play-in and in the postseason, he normally scores a lot more than that. So maybe he was affected by that injury. And of course, now we look ahead to Friday night, whether you play the Kings or the Mavericks. What's Ja Morant going to look like in that game? Ja, after the game, said he was going to play. There's no question. As far as going back into the game against the Warriors, Tomas Isolo was asked what kind of conversation went on. He said there was no conversation. It was a monologue. Ja said, I'm going back in. I'm playing. But Ja has 22 points. He only has 3 assists, has 5 turnovers. Turnovers, once again, a big issue for the Grizzlies. They had 20 turnovers as a team, including a 5-second violation when they were down by 3 as Santi Aldama failed to get the basketball in bounds. But Ja had 22 points. Jaren had maybe a slightly underwhelming 18 points. You feel like with how everybody else played, if Jaren could have been a little bit better, could have converted more in the lane, then the Grizzlies might have gotten this victory. Zach Edey had a big statistical game, and I feel like his contributions in this game are going to be a little bit controversial. He had 14 points and 17 rebounds and was a team best in plus minus once again, but also numerous turnovers, numerous times where he had the ball close towards the basket and had an inability to finish the shot or make the correct play. And all of this is going to go back to the players that Isolo had available, the players on the Grizzlies, like Scottie Pippen Jr. started the game. The starters alongside Ja, Jaren, and Dez, you had a rookie, Zach Edey, and you had Scottie Pippen Jr., an undrafted player, a two-way guy at the start of training camp. These are the players that Zach Kleiman has surrounded your big three with. And, of course, there is some context. There are injuries to Jalen Wells, also a rookie, by the way, injury to Brandon Clark, and then the failure of Vince Williams Jr. and Gigi Jackson to step up this year. But anyways, let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the game. The Grizzlies got up to an 11-3 lead early. Then they got dominated for the rest of the first quarter. The Warriors put together a 28-7 run. Basically ended with a really good execution with a 2-for-1. After this quick start, and then all of a sudden you start getting trucked for most of the first quarter. We were not happy at our watch party in Nashville. Lots of people are there. It was a really good time, except for the final outcome. But the Warriors had this 28-7 run, but then the Grizzlies end the first quarter on a high note as Desmond Bane drives towards the basket with about 30 seconds left, sets up the opportunity for the 2-for-1, and it's paid off as Luke Kennard hits a shot at the first quarter buzzer to make it a 7-point game. But then in the second quarter, more difficulties. You get a Steph Curry 4-point play that stretches the lead up to 20 points. But then the Grizzlies responded with their own run. They outscored the Warriors 13-2. In this run, you got that magical Ja Morant play where he threw the ball off the backboard to himself. Very exciting there. And at halftime, it was a 67-55 Warriors advantage. Then in the third quarter, the Grizzlies responded. This was an absolutely thrilling quarter. The Grizzlies showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of resiliency. They scored 36 points in the quarter. They made 15 out of their 24 field goal attempts in their quarter. They had 20 paint points in just the third quarter. They finished the game with 48 paint points, 20 of them in just the third quarter. And you cut it to a 3-point lead going into the fourth. In the fourth quarter starts off with a Desmond Bane 3-pointer to tie it. Then John Conchar scores on a nice cut. He gets a bucket to put the Grizzlies ahead for the first time since early in the first quarter. John Conchar played some big minutes in this game. John Conchar was good in this game. He was dusted off from being out of the rotation for a lot of the season. With the season on the line, they said, no, we're going to our veteran. We're going to John Conchar. Honestly, this reminded me of the 2017 Grizzlies postseason, when in the series against the Spurs, David Fizdale benched JaMychal Green, who he'd been starting all season. He had Zebo coming off the bench all season, but when it came to the playoffs, he's like, no. Sorry, JaMychal. Zebo's our guy. We're starting Zach Randolph. This is, of course, a much smaller stakes version of that, but I was amused. With the game on the line, with the season on the line, they're like, we can't play Vince Williams Jr. or Gigi Jackson or anybody else. John Conchar, you're back. And again, Conchar, honestly, I could have used more of John Conchar. It seemed like the right call to play him. He scored 6 points, made all 3 of his shots, provided some energy, provided some defense, and some smart plays, some hustle plays. But the Grizzlies take the lead early in the fourth quarter, and then it's back and forth. Both teams playing hard, both teams upset at the referees. I do think the refs maybe had an outsized influence on this game. I think as Grizzlies fans, we can point to the free throw totals of Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. Those guys combined for 31 free throws. If Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry get 31 free throws, that's a tough ask for anyone to beat that. But there were a lot of questionable calls. It seemed like a tight whistle against the Grizzlies. Also, notably, there was a phantom call on Scottie Pippen Jr. where Jimmy Butler got 2 points. Those were his 17th and 18th free throw attempts of the game. Ja was not getting a similar whistle. There was a play where Steph Curry, in my mind, jumps A to B, bumps Ja on his shot attempt. There's no call. Jaren gets pulled down by Steph Curry with about 3.5 minutes left on a loose ball situation. Like, Steph blatantly grabs him. There's no call in this situation. So it felt like, and based on my social media feed of not just Grizzlies fans, national reporters saying the Grizzlies are getting a terrible whistle. Then some things switched, and eventually the Grizzlies started getting some calls. Notably, I'm still a little bit confused about the Zach Edey non-foul on Draymond Green. Draymond grabs or is going for the rebound. It looks like Edey puts his arm on Draymond Green's shoulder and then uses that to propel himself upward and get the rebound. I thought that was certainly going to be changed to a foul on Edey. It was not. Then, of course, in the final seconds, there's that Brandon Pajimski block. That was definitely a clean block. That went the Grizzlies' way. The last 2-minute report should have some interesting things in it. But in that exciting fourth quarter, you had Steph Curry being the hero for the Warriors, coming up over and over with huge threes. Despite that, the Grizzlies still had a chance. The Warriors opened the door for them. And before that, I guess you could point to, the great hustle plays of the Grizzlies. Jaren hit a big clutch three-pointer. Ja made some unbelievable passes in this fourth quarter. He set Jaren up for a nice alley-oop at the rim, found Aldama for an easy basket. Then we had the fast break play where Bane did the fly-by king thing. He ends up making this three-pointer to cut it from a 4-point lead to a 1-point lead. So the whole fourth quarter, just back and forth, very, very exciting. But at the very end, let's go to the play where Zach Edey caught a Ja Morant pass and Jimmy Butler undercuts him. This is when the Grizzlies are down 3. Edey heads towards the line. He makes 1 out of 2. Then the Grizzlies get a stop. They have the ball in transition, but Ja Morant turns it over as Draymond Green deflects the pass where he's trying to hit Edey. This leads to a Steph Curry three-pointer, which puts the Warriors back up 5. Then you have a bit of a broken play where Scottie Pippen Jr. does a great job getting towards the rim and actually getting a shot up on the rim. He draws the entire defense. Edey gets that offensive rebound and dunks it home. We're back to a 3-point game. Then Steph seemingly breaks the back of the Grizzlies with this clutch three-pointer where he pump fakes a couple of times. That put the Grizzlies down 6 with 1 minute left. And you're thinking, okay, the game's over. Well, again, thankfully, the Warriors actually opened the door for the Grizzlies. Draymond Green committed a pretty dumb foul on the inbounds pass, letting Desmond Bane go to the line with no time running off the clock. That cut it to 4. Then Jimmy Butler does that turnover, which leads to the Scottie Pippen shot attempt at the rim, which, of course, it was a clean block by Brandon Pajimski, but that puts Scottie Pippen Jr. at the line. Unfortunately, Scottie only makes 1 out of 2 free throws there, so the Grizzlies trail by 3. The Grizzlies then get a stop, and then this is another controversial foul call where there's a loose ball rebounding foul on Kevon Looney. This was, I think, a surprising call because the call was late. On replay, it doesn't seem like that much of a foul. This is one that I'm going to guess maybe on the last 2-minute report, it says it was a correct call. But in that situation, in a playoff game, fighting for a rebound, or a postseason game, fighting for a rebound in the final 20 seconds or 30 seconds to call that, it's not what you normally expect in that situation. But anyways, there's this rebounding foul on Looney. Edey makes both clutch free throws, cuts it to 1. And then, of course, the Grizzlies purposely foul Steph. He makes both free throws, making a 3-point game. Then that sets up the final 5-second violation, the final play for the Grizzlies. They're trying to run a play to get Desmond Bane a 3-pointer on the opposite side of the court. He doesn't move, or he doesn't spring free until you're at the 4 count of the 5-second count. And I think Aldama did have a brief window to hit this pass, but I guess he was nervous. He might have turned it over because it was going to take a really good pass to hit Desmond Bane. They obviously wanted Desmond Bane to catch it over there, so he has an opportunity to shoot a game-tying 3-pointer before the Warriors can purposefully foul him. But he doesn't make the pass by the time Ja Morant pulls free. It's been 5 seconds. It's a legitimate 5-second call. I think most people have timed it. It's almost 6 seconds before he releases the pass, even if you wait a beat until after the ref gives him the ball. So that ended the game, and that's how the Grizzlies lose. And I do think losing in this manner where, like, Scottie Pippen Jr. had fouled out because Scottie Pippen Jr. was in there on a possession where you had to foul. I understand he's one of your best defenders and you're hoping for a turnover, but that feels like a situation where, I don't know. I know Vince Williams Jr. was bad in his 3 minutes, but, like, put Vince Williams Jr. out there to play defense. Put John Conchar out there to play defense. Put someone out there who has fouls to burn if you're in a situation where you know you're most likely going to have to foul. So you lost Scottie Pippen Jr. on that decision. It seems like maybe a coaching error there. And then not getting the ball in bounds on this most crucial play, like, that feels like coaching. It doesn't seem like there were a lot of options for Santi to throw the ball in. There certainly weren't many options until 4.5 seconds had elapsed. Having a rookie coach who is, less than 10 games, or is this his 10th game? 10 games into his career, that feels like something you can question. Maybe you can also question some strategy decisions, although I have fewer questions about the strategy overall. I mean, obviously you can point to Zach Edey having to guard Jimmy Butler a lot. He was asked, Isolo was asked after the game about this strategy decision. He said a couple reasons. One, Jimmy Butler doesn't shoot pull-up 3-pointers, and they were more concerned about Draymond's passing and having someone else help out on Draymond. And then they also thought that that's the way the Warriors were going to play it. They were actually having Draymond guard Jaren and Jimmy Butler guard Edey, and thus that would help the Grizzlies out in transition opportunities to not lose their men. If you've ever coached little kids basketball, you understand this. Everybody losing their man when it goes from offense to defense. So, I mean, I don't care that much, or I don't feel like anything was notably bad or anything about the coaching in that situation. But the notable end-of-game stuff where you're like, that feels like tiny coaching errors that maybe we could have avoided. But all in all, you fought hard, and now you have to play with your season on the line. But let's actually talk a little bit more about the performances of Zach Edey, the controversial performance of Zach Edey, and also Jaren's perhaps subpar game. We'll do that right after this short break. All right, let's go a little bit further discussing the performance of Zach Edey in this game. Zach Edey, of course, has been thrust into a huge role for the Grizzlies in these huge games. That's not Zach Edey's fault. That's the front office's fault. They made Zach Edey the crown jewel of the offseason. They drafted Zach Edey to be their starting center, essentially. Of course, maybe their backup plan was hopefully Brandon Clark will stay healthy all season. But basically it boiled down to the offseason when they said they needed a center after trading away Steven Adams at last year's trade deadline and giving up on him being healthy again. They're like, all right, we'll go with Zach Edey. And Zach Edey has had a lot of positives, and Zach Edey made a lot of positive plays in this play-in game. Getting 17 rebounds is impressive. Getting 7 offensive rebounds is impressive. He was a lot for the Warriors to handle. There is no better option for the Grizzlies right now than Zach Edey playing center and playing as many minutes as he can handle. Unfortunately, Zach Edey isn't quite ready, I think, to dominate these kind of games. And despite the fact that the stats look pretty good with the points and rebounds, Zach Edey cost the Grizzlies so many points in this game. And yes, he led the team in plus minus, but the Grizzlies would have won the game if Zach Edey had been able to deliver more when he had the ball. And again, I'm not blaming this loss in any way on Zach Edey. If Zach Edey doesn't play, the Grizzlies lose much worse than this. But I don't think we have to get carried away praising Zach Edey in these games when he leaves so much out there. Just the number of times where he had a guy on his back a few feet from the basket and failed to score, it's frankly a little bit staggering. He had, all right, Draymond Green on your back. That's difficult. Jimmy Butler on your back. That's difficult. But he had 2 opportunities to score on Quentin Post. Quentin Post is also a rookie. He was the 52nd pick in this year's draft. And Edey turned down a shot one time. He threw it to Vince Williams Jr. There's a reason they left Vince Williams Jr. wide open on the perimeter. Vince has no confidence, playing poorly right now, turned down the open shot, drives into traffic, turns the basketball over. Another time, Edey is posting up Quentin Post and just has no post move. Turns to his right-handed hook and bricks it badly. Of course, there's the missed dunk on the beautiful inbounds play early in the first quarter. And then the turnovers. Again, I counted them up. 4 turnovers that Zach Edey committed when he had the ball close towards the basket. And then there's that 5th play where Vince Williams Jr. turned it over after Zach turned it over to him. And then there's the plays just you don't finish. And those are all plays costing you points. And I think Zach Edey could develop to be a really good center in the NBA. And while he's a rookie, he's an older rookie, but when you look at the centers league-wide, when is he going to be an above-average center? He has this elite skill for offensive rebounding. He's a good defensive rebounder, too. He helps the Grizzlies right now to rebound. A lot of the other players out there, not very good rebounders. Jaren Jackson Jr., notably not a very good rebounder. But right now, he's just not good enough to help you win a playoff series or to help you win this postseason game. And then the other kind of drawback is he clogs the lane for Jaren. Yes, Jaren wasn't as good as maybe we wanted in this game. He did hit 2 big-time three-pointers, including one in the fourth quarter that was absolutely massive. He makes 4 out of 9 three-pointers, but he fails to score on his normal drives. He fails to score with those short floaters that he's been so good at all year. Last episode, I was talking about the scoring difference between Ja and Jaren and the changes as the season has gone along. In the first 45 games or so, Jaren was averaging 23 points per game. But then after the trade deadline, after the All-Star break, Jaren's under 20 points per game. I was thinking more about Ja Morant's usage. Some of that could be the increased usage of Zach Edey and having Zach's defenders be able to sag off and help on Jaren. And much like Zach Edey absolutely struggled horrifically with double teams in this game, so did Jaren. But a lot of that time it was because Zach Edey's man would leave him to chase Jaren and force a turnover. So some of the issues that Jaren's having, I think, could be because Zach Edey's playing. Again, Zach Edey is a very promising rookie, but right now he's not good enough for these situations, and that goes towards, for me, that goes towards the front office, where this is your only option. Knowing Brandon Clark had an injury history, he's coming back from catastrophic injury, not having another tool in the toolbox, so to speak, for these situations, it's not great. And then you go to the Scottie Pippen Jr. issue once again. Scottie Pippen Jr. starting, they chose to start him, obviously, to chase around Steph Curry and try to hassle him. Scotty made a lot of really good plays in this game. Had 9 points, ends up fouling out, but 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, only 1 turnover. Makes 3 out of his 8 field goal attempts. But we're in year 5 of building around Ja, Jaren, and Desmond. We're 3 seasons past the playoff series win over the Timberwolves. And to roll out Scottie Pippen Jr. and Zach Edey as your starters alongside Ja, Jaren, and Dez. And, again, you point to the injuries, but, it would have been Jalen Wells, the same situation. You can be excited with finding a, diamond in the rough in the second round with Jalen Wells, but still, these are not difference makers yet for the postseason. And I don't see how the Grizzlies are going to get a lot better in the offseason, but that is its own story. Anyways, Luke Kennard made that one shot, the buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. Vince Williams Jr. turned the basketball over twice in his 3 minutes. Will Vince play more? Will he start against the Kings? I mean, you can't feel like he did anything in this game to give the coaching staff confidence in him. We thought maybe that awesome double-double in the easy blowout as the last game of the season. Maybe Vince will have more of an opportunity. No, he came off the bench behind Scottie Pippen Jr. I do think they might turn to John Conchar. I mean, if you don't start Scottie Pippen against the winner of the Kings and Mavericks, would you go with Conchar or somebody else? But anyways, the Grizzlies play on Friday night. As far as I know, it's going to be 8:30 p.m. I assume it's going to be somewhere around there. We will have a watch party in Nashville at Noble's Beer Hall, so come on out to that. Hang out with us Grizzlies fans in Nashville. Of course, Memphis people, go to the game, man. Make the home atmosphere raucous and thunderous. Speaking of thunderous, and let's get that win and go play the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking about possibly keeping the draft pick. I addressed this on last week's or last episode. No, I mean, you're going to play to win, and you are going to give Ja and Dez and Jaren a chance in the postseason. You're going to get Zach Edey some experience in the postseason if you can. That stuff pays off down the line. Without that many avenues to improve your team externally, you probably need these reps for Scottie Pippen Jr. and for Zach Edey in the postseason. But I guess with that, we can wrap up this episode. I mean, a devastating, heartbreaking loss at the very least. I think I'm pleased how hard the team fought and how competitive they were throughout the game. Now we have a do or die, a real and actual do or die game on Friday night against the Kings. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening to these episodes. If you want to support the creation of these episodes, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Remember, over there, you can join the listener Slack channel. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys at Nobles on Friday night. Anyways, hope you have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.